What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Monday to you all. DK Show up on the air on your radio dials 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also streaming online, sportstalk1051.com. We're on your smart devices. We're also on all over It's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. Wherever you're watching. Heck, you can even pull it up on Roku if you want. Don't know how? Smart TV or whatever? Just, download that YouTube app and look it up over there. You can see this, face for radio over there. But hopefully you all had a fantastic weekend and, you're ready to hit up a brand new work week here, and boy, do we have lots to catch up on here. Let's get right to the game plan for us this morning. Obviously, if you're just waking up, maybe you went to bed before 9 o'clock last night, but the news out there that Juan Soto has a new deal with New York, but not the Yankees. It's with the Mets. Former Brewers general manager David Stearns opening up his owner Steve Cohen's checkbook and signing Juan Soto to the richest contract in the history of sports. 15 years, $765 million. None of it, according to reports too, is deferred. So it's not even the Dodgers, where all that's like deferred and such. Mm-mm. Doesn't sound like it. So, yeah, $765 million for 15 years. Bigger than Otani's deal, bigger than Lionel Messi's deal, bigger than Patrick Mahomes' deal. I mean, highest in the history of sports. So, whoo, Nelly, yeah. And then Saturday, Willie Adames is now we can say officially former Milwaukee Brewer Willie Adames. He signed a 7-year deal, a little over $180 million with the San Francisco Giants. So Willie will remain in the National League, going over to the NL West though, with the Giants, and then well, Juan Soto's back in the National League here too, teaming up with the Mets there. So thoughts, reaction, whether it's from the Willie Adames. I think all of us Brewers fans out there, if you're a Brewers fan, yeah, you assumed it was going to happen. You figured it was going to happen at some point, but now it's out there. So time to officially move on, I guess, here. But, you know, when it comes to the business of sports, when it comes to these contracts and what we hear these players are getting, especially for a guy like Juan Soto, and specifically, this is maybe more so with baseball because there is not a salary cap. And again, there won't be a salary cap. It's just players aren't going to go for it, especially the big time players, because if Major League Baseball has a salary cap, Juan Soto doesn't get $765 million. Otani doesn't get $700 million. Or, these players, these top line players aren't getting it. And the owners that have the deep pockets don't want the salary cap either because they can afford to do this. Maybe some owners would like it, but it's too far down the road now for that to ever happen. I agree with when we had Brandon on last week. I like the idea of a salary floor where teams have to spend a minimum. NFL employs something similar to that, where they've got to spend a certain amount of their salary cap in a like a is it a 4-year period, 3-year period, somewhere around there. So, but when it comes to the business of sports, with these player contracts, I mean, how much does it turn you off as a fan? If you're a Mets fan, you're probably excited. You're probably stoked, right? I mean, you're probably like, "Hey, let's go." But if you're a smaller market team like the Brewers, I mean, how much does this turn you off from like, oh, my team can't compete with that? Kind of maybe does it take a little bit out of your does it take a little bit out of your I guess takes the wind out of your sails a little bit when you get excited for the upcoming seasons and such. It's just, there's no way whatsoever will we ever see the day of maybe I shouldn't say that, but at least maybe in the immediate future, we'll see a Brewer player ever get that amount of money and such. But I mean, at some point now, we're going to get a player that's probably going to get $1 billion, right? Right? I mean, it's just it's we're going to get a player that's going to be $1 billion, right? I mean, if you're a fan of these teams, you're probably excited. I mean, just going on social media and seeing Mets fans, I mean, they're pumped. It's not their money, right? The fans aren't, paying his salary. They'll have to, well, they're part of it because of tickets and swag and apparel and all that, but you're not writing out the millions of dollars checks and such. So fans are pumped up. Fans of not the Mets are probably like irritated and such. I mean, if this were to, if the Brewers probably went out there and did it, I'm sure there'd be a good chunk of Brewers fans that'd be pumped about it. But it does take at least for me, it dampers it a little bit. It's like, God, come on. But yeah, I really think we're going to get a player now. It's going to come from the baseball world, maybe soccer, but we're going to get a player that's going to get $1 billion, like a contract worth $1 billion. We're at 765 right now. It's not that far off. I was listening to Jeff Passan a little bit from ESPN, and he even thought too, like this is way more than what he thought Soto was going to get. I mean, originally it was 625 million, but you get teams that have deep pockets that get into these bidding wars with each other. Price tag goes up. So yeah, I think we're going to get a player at some point that's going to get close to $1 billion and hit that $1 billion mark. So we'll talk some baseball throughout the morning. Brewers wise, overall wise. Now that the biggest domino has fallen, you got other players. Maybe now, where do the Yankees go? Do they go like to a Corbin Burns? Who knows? But we're going to talk a little college football as well, as it sounds like the Badgers have their new offensive coordinator already. Now, the unique thing is in college football, we see it how many times, but coaches can make parallel moves, unlike the NFL, where you got to be released from your contract or such, and the team has to release you. But the Badgers hiring offensive coordinator from Kansas, Jeff Grimes. So Wisconsin going to Lance Leipold's coaching staff and bringing over Kansas's offensive coordinator, Jeff Grimes. That's widely been reported out there and such. So what does it mean? Well, on the surface, it sure seems like now that Wisconsin may be going back to their power running game or utilizing the run a lot more than what they did the last couple of years under Phil Longo. Just some numbers at Kansas. So Grimes originally was at Baylor too. Was a few years ago up for the coordinator assistant coach of the year award. But at Kansas this past year, just 1 year at Kansas too, 47th in the country and at 410.9 yards per game, but 201, a little over 201 yards rushing per game, which was 16th in the country. So before his first season at Kansas this past year, 3 years at Baylor, where yes, he was the Art Bowles Award in his first year, ultimately, where he was a finalist for that too. So in his first year, but on the surface, it sure looks like Wisconsin right now going to be changing their philosophy on offense. It's going back to a running game. And Jeff Grimes is a former offensive lineman, which there was some talk too with the offensive coordinator position. A lot of offensive coordinators coach the quarterbacks, but with Grimes being an offensive lineman by trade, kind of fits Wisconsin's pedigree and history there too. So it sure seems like Wisconsin too will be looking for a future quarterback coach, but that's it's nothing official yet from the program, but it's all over the place right now. So, but what do you think about the hire, Jeff Grimes? And probably not a name that many people are familiar with, unless you're from Kansas because of Coach Leipold and such. But when you hear, bringing back, focusing a little bit more on the running game, He's an offensive lineman by trade. Offensive line background dates back all the way to 2000 and such when he first started off with Boise State. But I think a lot of people, when you hear Wisconsin's going back to maybe a little bit more of a run first mindset, they're probably good with it. Now, also got some big playability within the style of offense from Jeff Grimes. So, what do you think? Yay, nay, thumbs up, thumbs down? Your thoughts on the new Badgers offensive coordinator? We'll hit that up. Bucks win yesterday against the Brooklyn Nets. Next up is the NBA Cup, which they will take on the Orlando Magic starting tomorrow. So Chris Middleton did return on Friday, going up against the Boston Celtics. A game where the Bucks lost, and the Bucks getting swept by the Boston Celtics this season. But Middleton is back in his 2 games so far. Played at least 20 minutes against the Nets yesterday. Played 20 minutes, scored 11. Celtics played 23 minutes, scored 11 as well. So working his way back into the rhythm there. But Middleton back to provide a little bit more, hopefully, talent, and hopefully he's good for the rest of the year here and doesn't suffer any setbacks or any other injuries here too. But got the NBA Cup for the Bucks team starting tomorrow as they take on the Orlando Magic. We'll throw a little green and gold chat in here as well. No, we're a few days away removed from the loss to the Lions. We've got the Seattle Seahawks coming up next in the final quarter, the regular season. The final quarter, baby. Here we go. Taking a look at this. I want to talk a little bit about the defense here and kind of going back to Thursday and such. Thursday night's game against the Lions here. But there's a big part of me that believes that Jeff Hafley, defensive coordinator for the Packers, is stuck doing a certain how do I want to phrase this? His hands are kind of tied in what maybe his philosophy or what he wants to do on defense. I believe his hands are a little bit tied, and that's kind of related to the offensive strategy of what the Packers are doing here too. And I want to specifically it targets the corners on this team. So get into that a little bit later on this afternoon. But I feel like Hafley can't quite do exactly what he fully wants to do on the defensive side, and that in turn is not really affecting, but that's a big reason or big play into what the offensive philosophy has been like so far for Green Bay. So I was thinking about this and chatting with some people about it over the weekend, and want to get your thoughts on that too. But I think, when you look at the tiers in the NFL, I mean, you look at Green Bay and their losses. I know that graphic or that numbers out there when you look at their losses this year: 2 against Detroit, 1 against Philly, 1 against Minnesota. I mean, those are the top 3 teams from a win-loss perspective in the NFC. I mean, all their losses coming from those. So I don't know if you take that as a positive or maybe it's just another sign of like, yep, they're just maybe one step back, not quite ready to maybe win those bigger games. Take it for however you want, but we'll hit that up. It is Monday, so I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Fill in the blanks. Hit us up with your best. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, and we'll relay those on the air too. We'll do some local sports roundup. I know we had a lot going on this past weekend. It's a fantastic day Saturday for the Blue Golds. I mean, Blue Gold men's basketball. I was at that game watching it. An intense back and forth. Went to overtime. Men's team prevailing for a win, their 5th straight win. Women's team, last second layup to win their game against Superior. Men's hockey taking down top 10 ranked River Falls. Women's hockey picking up a win. Wrestling had good showing over the weekend too. So, I mean, it was a fantastic Saturday and weekend for the Blue Golds too. So, but let's get things going here this morning. We'll open it up talking a little baseball. Willie Adames on the move, signing a deal with the Giants. But the biggest news in the world of sports this morning that everybody's going to be talking about is Juan Soto, the biggest deal in the history of sports. 15 years, $765 million. If you're a fan of a small market team like the Brewers and you see these teams with rich pockets and deep pockets, does it take out a little bit of your excitement, your fanism for the sport, knowing that you can't compete, your team can't compete for those type of players, that they're never going to be in the running for that, that you know that at this point, like even Willie Adamas's deal looks like chunk change compared to Juan Soto's for crying out loud. But we even knew that the Brewers couldn't afford that. So when you see this, if it's not your team, and if you're a fan of a smaller market team and you're just kind of on the sidelines and you're just like, yeah, my team will never be able to do that. Does it take a little bit out of your fanism for when it comes to the Brewers or such? Maybe it is a little bit of a grind my gears Monday here a little bit. I don't know. But let's get things going here this morning. We got the lead off coming up. We'll talk some baseball, talk some Packers in this first hour. Then we got some hoops and college football to talk about. I want to talk a little bit more about the Badgers' new offensive coordinator, Mr. Grimes. Marquette taking down Wisconsin over the weekend, too. Lots to catch up on. 2 weeks from today, it'll be our annual Festivus show, our annual Festivus program, and we're going to be doing it from our good friends, the VFW Post 305. So more details to come, but put it on the calendars, hang out with us, maybe grab some breakfast, try some of those taco omelets and that over there. But yeah, 2 weeks from today, before we're off for a little bit because of the Christmas season, the holiday season, we'll do our Festivus program. Plus, that night, it's Green Bay taking on New Orleans for some Week 16 action already. So, last quarter, last quarter of the NFL season. After tonight's game, but then we're officially on to the last quarter of the NFL season. So, we'll talk some Packers coming up here in just a little bit, but we lead things off this morning. I'm going to start it off talking some baseball. Couple things of note. Obviously, the biggest news in the world of sports right now with Juan Soto leaving the Mets, but not leaving too far. He's moving back to the National League, where he is signing a record deal, 15 years, $765 million with the New York Mets. So the richest deal in the history of sports, in professional sports, the biggest deal out there. At some point, somebody's going to break it. I really feel like at some point now, we're going to see $1 billion player. But I was reading a little bit here too. None of it's deferred. It's not like the Ohtani one where it was like 90% of the deal was deferred. This one isn't. Juan Soto's cashing in right away and staying in the big city of New York. So definitely changes maybe a little bit in the National League there. You know, you got the Dodgers. They're going to be big players in the NL West. The Mets going up against, the likes of the Braves and such in their division. At least the NL Central really hasn't been doing a whole lot, I guess, on this surface, although the Brewers been missing some players left and right. Frankie Montas went to the Mets and signed up. Gary Sanchez signed a 1-year deal with the Baltimore Orioles, but I don't think that was too big of a surprise. But Willie Adames also officially gone. 7-year deal to join the San Francisco Giants. 7-year, $182 million contract. And Willie Adames moving to the West Coast, but staying in the National League, teaming up with the Giants here. So got winter meetings going on in Major League Baseball, and that's kind of always the big time when you're seeing a lot of these deals get finalized and get done and such. So the big domino has fallen, and now probably a lot more. Some teams maybe like the Yankees and some of these other teams who were like Boston, who were reportedly in the running and trying to get Juan Soto. They're moving on to Plan B right now. Maybe it's some starting pitching. Maybe it's bolstering up other areas of their teams. But now with the big domino to fall, those remaining free agents out there, they're going to be now in play. And maybe some of their prices went up a little bit or not. We shall see. But now everybody else can kind of go about doing the rest of their business. Maybe something like this is going to make the Yankees spend a little bit more for a guy like Corbin Burns or such. Or, maybe like an Alex Bregman or some of these other guys out there who are available. So, but when it comes to, if you're a Mets fan, you're probably geeked up, you're excited, you're pumped up this morning. Maybe you didn't put out or get a whole lot of sleep last night, with the news because it came, I think Jeff Passan was the first one shortly after 9 o'clock to report it. So maybe you've been celebrating a lot. I don't know if we've got any Mets fans that are listening to us or such, but, you're obviously excited. You're pumped. Your team saw them make that deep postseason run. Now you add Juan Soto to the equation. You're excited, and you've got high goals for the foreseeable future, and you should as a fan. But if you are a fan of, say, the Brewers or any other smaller market team, when you see these teams with empty pockets and they go out there and they're able to do a deal like this, knowing that your team will never, at least in its current state, won't compete with that, can't compete with that. Does it ruin the sport for you for a little bit? Does it take the wind out of the sails? Like, we can love the game of baseball itself, but when it comes to, like, Major League Baseball, and you see a lot of this money get shelled out for, because it's always the usual suspects, right? Whenever there's a big time free agent, whether it was Otani last year or Soto this year, we can always kind of come up with, oh, it's going to be these teams because we know about the checkbooks. We know about, the savings account. It's pretty unlimited for a lot of these teams. So if your team is for Brewer, I mean, does it take a little bit of that excitement out? Does it maybe, remove a little bit of your fanism from watching Major League Baseball? Because I'll admit it. It stinks not knowing that your team is not able to be players in free agency that much. I mean, it stunk knowing that we knew that Willy Adames wasn't coming back just because of the contract wise. And then you look at it, it's like 7 years, 182 million. And you compare it to a 15-year, $765 million contract. It's like, now it looks like chunk change. But as a Brewers fan, yeah, it stinks. I'll admit it. It stinks. Now, the one hand, it's like, it's going to be sweeter if your team takes down those big spending teams. That's always the positive. That's always like what we kind of root for when we go up against teams like the Dodgers or Phillies or now the Mets and such, is like, all right, it's going to be even more sweeter when we take those teams down with our younger, little bit cheaper of a team. Now, yeah, Brewers got some money on the payroll. I mean, they're paying Jackson Churio. They've got Christian Yelich under that big contract too. So it's not like they're the Pittsburgh Pirates or anything, although you got the A's now spending a boatload of money. What, their biggest contract they've given out in franchise history for Severino there. So, but yeah, it, as a Brewers fan, especially since it's in the National League, it stinks, and it kind of sucks knowing that you're not going to be big time players in free agency. Like when it gets to the NFL, and it was kind of like that for a long time with Green Bay. We know that, no knock on Ted Thompson, rest in peace. But when free agency rolled around, you kind of knew Green Bay wasn't going to be players in there either. Once in a while, he'd shock you. Once in a while, he'd pull out a Charles Woodson signing or maybe a Julius Pepper signing a little bit later on and such. But in the last couple of years, I mean, you've had Goody being active. This past offseason, it was Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs. Those two are really working out. His first year, he signed up Zadarius, Preston, Adrian, Billy Turner all in one day, and you're like, who the heck is this? What team is this? So that's kind of changed a little bit. But at least in the NFL, you've got the salary cap. Everybody's kind of in play. They've got to spend a certain amount of their salary cap in like a certain time period. Otherwise, they get penalized. There's a ceiling floor or the salary floor. Excuse me. NBA Bucks, we've seen them be uber aggressive over the last few years. And yes, kind of in salary cap hell, if you will. But when it gets to baseball, where there is no salary cap and there will never ever be a salary cap at this point, it kind of stinks knowing that your team isn't going to be playmakers or players for a lot of those big time free agents. And yeah, it takes a little bit of a hit. Doesn't mean I'm not going to cheer for them any less or support them for any less or anything like that. But I think we also maybe have to have some realistic expectations when it comes to this team, I guess. I don't know. Like, I just saw Sam Decker tweet this out, former Badger basketball player. I love being a Brewers fan because it's the purest type of sports fandom. You cheer for the team because of what it means to the area it's in, ultimately constrained by margins they have to stay within to prosper as an organization, and you ride or die with results. The Soto deal means nothing to me because that's not the world I will ever be in as a baseball fan, and I like it that way. That's an interesting perspective too. That's one way to look at it too. Right? I mean, there's the other side of that aisle. And I think for a lot of us, for Brewers fans too, we're probably just like, it is what it is at this point. It's just not going to happen. And this is the world we live in. for our sports fandom, for our team. We know we're never going to sign a player like a Soto or an Otani or anything like that. Our chances of ever getting a player like that is, you're looking at a Jackson Cheerio case where you're signing your guys, your younger guys that have a very high ceiling, two longer term deals, and you're hoping after a couple of years, after a few years, it's cheap. And you get to play the system that way. That's how the Brewers are going to win. And that's how the Brewers are going to remain competitive. They have to trust their scouting, and they have to hope that they hit on their younger players and try to lock them up. And after a couple of years, those deals look cheap. That's the way the Brewers have to play it. There won't ever be one of these big time free agents that are out there. They're not going to be players for those type of guys. It's not going to happen at this current rate. Does it stink? It stinks. Let's be real. It does stink that you're not going to be able to go out there. But maybe you kind of like Sam Decker said, you kind of look at it like, okay, I know it's not going to happen. I know we're not going to be players for that. I get it. It is what it is. But I choose to look at it a certain way, and maybe that's why you're a fan too. Maybe you're a fan too because you don't want your team to be big time spenders, and you like the feel of a smaller market team, and you like the feel of like, when we take down those teams, or if we do take down those teams, it feels a little bit more of a sticking point and such. I don't know. Jeremy, really quick, says, I think the amount of money for Soto is crazy. He is good, but I don't think he's a top 5 player in the league. You're absolutely correct when you say someone is going to sign for $1 billion, I will say within 5 years. Yeah, I don't know who that player is going to be at this point in time, but it sure feels like, we're at 765 right now. Somebody's going to get $1 billion. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen in baseball, maybe soccer. Those would be the top two, but somebody's going to sign for $1 billion. And it's going to have to be like another one, sort of like maybe a younger type of player who's hitting that market, early, mid 20s and such. But it's going to be, right? It's going to happen at some point. $1 billion. Think about that. Kids, grow up to be baseball players. Not only does baseball not have the salary cap, but you have the guaranteed contracts too. Grow up to be baseball players. Maybe a little bit harder to crack that major league level and to get that, but man, when you can, boy, there's some gash in it. Man. All right, let's take a quick break. Continue to send me some text, though, on that Shoe Doctor's bullpen line, 715-830-1912. 715-830-1912. I disagree, C-Bomb. First billion will be Jackson Cheerio. No, he's already under a long-term 10-year deal. He won't get $1 billion after that. He'll be like almost 30 at that point. So, quick break. We'll be back in just a little bit. What is on your wish list this season? If you said a new home or maybe even a piece of land in the middle of the woods to escape to or have your own hunting parcel, you are in luck because Woods and Water Realty has your wish list already available. Just visit woodsandwater.com to check out all listings available for homes, cabins, or parcels of land. And the team of realtors at Woods and Water Realty are ready to help you find that new dream home or a piece of land to build your future dream home. The realtors from Woods and Water Realty are with you every step of the way, making the process of home buying super simple. So start looking through that wish list right now at woodsandwater.com. Want to give a couple tip of the cap shout outs to, yesterday we were over at Mills Fleet Farm. So shout out to Mills Fleet Farm. But for the second year in a row, we were able to take some kiddos Christmas shopping for them to have a very Merry Christmas. And it was because of all of you who have supported Backyard Dreams this year. We were able to take some kids Christmas shopping. So seeing their faces, seeing their surprise faces yesterday, and able to load up some of the shopping carts with some gifts was pretty cool. And we did it last year. It's the second year. Hoping to do it again next year, but we can't do it without all of you who help support Backyard Dreams. So a big thanks to all of you, and a big thanks again to Mills Fleet Farm for hosting us again, letting us, or letting the kids, I should say, go through the Toyland aisles over there and fill up some of their shopping carts there too. So it was really cool. Big thanks to everybody for that. So all right, let what is going on? We've got some background feed there. Let's finish up this hour. I want to talk a little green and gold here before we get to some Badger chat here. Badger football. We're going to talk about their new offensive coordinator. Keep your thoughts coming from the baseball world, though. Whether it's Willie Adames going to the Giants, Juan Soto with the big deal and such. We'll hit that up throughout this morning here. But was talking over the weekend a little bit with some peeps and such, and we were talking a little bit about defensive play, Jeff Halfley, and what we've been seeing from this Packers defense. And I want to give a shout out to somebody I was talking to, Jake, my buddy Jake, and I thought he made a great point when we look at what we've seen so far from the defense. Because again, you look at that Lions game and it was, Jared Goff effective, short passing game, things were over the middle and such, playing zone defense. It was probably a lot of people just pounding the table like, what are we doing here? And I feel like maybe Halfley isn't able to run some of the stuff that he wants to run. Defensively, I feel like he's not able to run some of the stuff that he wants to run because, for one, Jair Alexander's not out there. But, after that, yes, you have Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine and such, but, they're not on a Jair level when Jair's healthy and such. So shout out to Jake, 'cause I thought this was I thought he hit it on the head with this, and I gotta give him credit there because I don't want to take credit for this. But he made the point of saying, I think Halfley knows he doesn't have the cover guys he needs, so that's why we're seeing so much zone. But him and LaFleur are in sync in this, and that, knowing that we're going to play defensively, going to prevent the big plays and such. That's why on offense too, and I don't mind if this was like this all the time, but you're seeing on offense too, where we're seeing a very run focused, draining the clock type of offense. I mean, what first half of that Lions game, Jordan Love threw it 7 times, was 3 of 7 and such. But knowing that we have to play a little bit of a zone offense and trying to prevent the big plays. Offensively, it feeds into that. You're kind of playing that complementary football where you're trying to drain the clock out and you're trying, to come away with those touchdowns and really focusing and really, putting your offense on the running back's shoulders there. It limits by doing this, you're limiting possessions for the other team. You're limiting possessions for offensive teams like Detroit and such. It does put more pressure on your own team, in this case, the Packers, to make sure you do come away with touchdowns and you do come away with points and you're not going, you know, quick 3 and outs. But I think he's right that Halfley is maybe a little bit handcuff might be a little dramatic at that point, but I think he's limited into what he wants to do defensively because, when he was first hired, we heard aggressive coverage, press coverage, man-to-man coverage and such. We heard all of that, and a lot of Packers fans, myself included, we were all for it. Like, oh, finally, yes, here we go. But you take Jair out of that, and then you have guys that maybe can't play that. So they're changing their philosophy a little bit and playing a little bit more zone, and it's frustrating because I'll tell you what, watching that Lions game, I'm sitting there, it's like it pisses me off watching this Lions offense because they just make it look so simple. They're having success, and it just makes it look so simple, and it was pissing me off. Like, it's one of those, like, come on now. But I feel like, I think it's a part of the game plan, and maybe he's a little tied up. Like, he doesn't want to give up the big play. We talked about it. It's like, okay, maybe he's got to play a little bit more aggressive and play that man on man and put a guy on an island there. But obviously, they don't want to do that. They don't want to give up the big plays. They don't want these offensive teams to put up some big points right away and often. That's the philosophy they're in right now. So it sure feels like when we get to this offseason, whether it's a draft or free agency, I think if it's not priority one, it's up there towards the top. It's going to be another corner or two. And at this point, I like Jair. I really do. I like 23. I know he probably annoys some fans because of the talking and that, but I feel like, you know what? In this day and age in the NFL, everybody does a little trash talk. Everybody talks. You don't have to like it or not. It is what it is. It's the game now. We see it all over. Your tight end, Green Bay's tight ends, one of the biggest trash talkers out there, for crying out loud. But availability has got to be the number one thing. And right now, when you look at it, Jair has not been available for a couple of years now. Let me bring up his contract number here, see what it looks like for the next couple of years and such. But even if Jair is back next year, I think if you're Green Bay, you got to look at bringing in a couple of corners. If you really want Halfley to play the style of defense that we were hearing about, all offseason we were kind of getting excited about, I think you look at this and be like, okay, one of the top priorities is going to have to be another corner or two. Yeah, according to Spot Track, the potential out for Jair is going to be after 2025. I don't know. Yeah, if you want a lower dead cap, I mean, maybe this year, maybe going into next, be a $19 million dead cap with him next year. But then he's only 28. I feel like he won't be gone and that, but availability, man. Availability's got to be huge. And I feel like that's got to be a priority next year, next offseason for Goody to take a look at this team and try to address that cornerback position, because obviously Eric Stokes, they're not all in on Eric Stokes. That's obvious. He's playing now because Jair's out there, but even when Jair's out there, Stokes wasn't getting any snaps hardly. So the former first round pick sure seems like he does not fit. And I don't know if it's just because he's still recovering from that lower leg injury, if that really took a hit on his career or took a hit on his abilities and such, but he's not a long-term fixture in this. Carrington Valentine's a good corner, but is he a top-tier corner? No, he's not a top-tier corner. Is Keyshawn Nixon a top-tier corner? No, he's not a top-tier corner. And I think when you're looking at some of these offenses across the league right now, you got to have at least a pair of solid corners. And for what Jeff Halfley has to do or wants to do on offense, if he wants to be aggressive, that's a position that Green Bay is going to have to look at addressing in this offseason. And I feel like Green Bay right now is, I mean, you look at it, their losses this year, all four of their losses, I guess you can, for some, maybe look at this as a positive, but, their four losses are against the three top teams record win-loss wise in the NFC. That's Detroit, 2 losses, 1 loss against Minnesota, and the opener against Philly. When you look at standings, those are the 3 teams with the most wins. So on one hand, some people are like, yeah, their losses are at least against good teams. But on the other hand, I kind of look at it as, all right, maybe this team isn't ready to take that next step yet. Maybe they're just that one tier back or that one step back from those top teams. Now, they'll get to play Minnesota again. We'll see if they can get that W at Minnesota and such. But I look at it as like, okay, maybe they're not in that upper echelon right now. Maybe they're not in the Philly category. Maybe they're not in the Lions category right now. There's a lot to like about this team, and I think, there's just, it's not like doom and gloom with this team. The ceiling is so high. And I feel like we're still at a point where if they could just play a clean game, if they could stop self-inflicting wounds and all that, if that just all kind of comes together, this is a team that has an incredibly high ceiling for the now, for the future, for the next couple of years. They've got that. Now, you just hope that they take advantage of that. That's my one concern is like, okay, you've got all this young talent. You've got all these, playmakers on here. And for some of them, you're getting by without having to shell out a bunch of money where it hinders your salary cap. And for the others, you're like, okay, for like the Xavier McKinney's, you want to take advantage of the play in his prime that you're getting right now. Same with Josh Jacobs and that. It's like, I just hope at some point they hit that ceiling and they become that team where they grab some championships. I think it's there. It's just not quite to that Lions level yet. They're not there with the Eagles yet. Maybe it'll happen in the next final quarter. Maybe they can go on a run in the postseason. But that's how I choose to look at it with their record against teams this year. Their 4 losses coming away with those. Okay, some may say, yeah, they lost to the best teams out there record-wise. Well, that tells me it's like, all right, maybe Green Bay is just one step behind them right now. They're going to the playoffs this year, and maybe they can get hot, and maybe they can run, make a little bit of a run there. But, I mean, if it's Green Bay versus Detroit in the playoffs at some point, right now, I'm picking Detroit. I'm picking Detroit at this point. Green Bay got their turnover in that game when they picked Jared Goff. They took advantage of it. They took the lead. They came back and took the lead. It's just right now, defensively, I don't trust them to hold leads against a team like Detroit. And I feel like it's because they can't do exactly what they want to do. And they got to play that quote unquote prevent style defense, that zone style defense, and hope that they can keep teams out of the end zone and hope that maybe they can, force a turnover and such. And against a team like Detroit, where you got Jared Goff, who's playing at a high level, and for an offense, led by Ben Johnson, who's probably the top offensive coordinator out there in the game right now calling plays, more times than not, that probably won't work out. All right, coming up next hour, I want to talk a little Badger football. We got a new offensive coordinator with the Badger football team. We'll hit that up. We'll do some local sports roundup with Mr. Justice Cleveland. Lots to catch up on, prep-wise, college-wise. Heck of a weekend for the Blue Golds as well. So we'll do some local sports roundup with him. We'll get back to some more baseball talk. Soto, Willie Adames, Bucks also picking up a win yesterday. Chris Middleton is back. He made his return on Friday. Bucks now will get set for their NBA Cup run as they take on the Orlando Magic tomorrow. So we got that. Also, send me your I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Send those on over to hit me up with a text 715 830 1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. Okay. So send those over. Best ones not only get mentioned on the air, but we'll put them up on our podcast later on this morning too. So, and don't forget, you can hit up the Man Cave hotline if you want a question or comments, or you want to hit up a text to be featured on the Man Cave podcast. You can do that. That phone number is in the Man Cave podcast description, whether it's on Spotify or Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. So send those on over. Lots to still get to. Marquette, we got to talk about Marquette, Wisconsin basketball. Marquette able to get the victory. Wisconsin was up a little bit in the first half, but Marquette able to close it out. So the Badgers now dropping their last two games against Michigan and now Marquette. So little college hoops we got thrown there too. College football playoff. I mean, criminy, there's lots to get to here. Do you like the college football playoff? Did they get it right? Yay or nay? I think number one's pretty easy, Oregon, but did they get the rest right? 1 through 12. No Alabama. Some of you got your wish there. What do you got? All right, 1 hour in. Second hour kicking off right now on this Monday morning. A big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you are tuning in from. Tom from across the pond, our resident Lions fan, says Packers worry me more than the Vikings do going forward to the playoffs. 2-0, but don't feel either game was a game we should have won. Yes, Tom, sound doesn't work during commercial breaks because we don't want to get copyright stuff on the music. So that's why. You probably saw Justice and I talking, but there was no audio because we can't do that during the commercial breaks there. So,
and
I don't want to get that YouTube has blocked it and Russia notification.
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah. So, those copyright claims anywhere.
Exactly. So, good morning, boss.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Doing good.
You gonna try to hit the golf course with the weather today? I mean, it's gonna be like 40s.
Yeah. Backyard course is that this time of year. Anytime there's not snow on the ground, is go back, hit the. I was doing the Bryson DeChambeau over the house before he was. Now, granted, I'm using the foam golf balls to do it, but I'm like, I've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
Except he's much better at it. I would never use a real golf ball.
Worked out for him.
Yeah. Oh, it really did. But yeah. Never even, my wife would just, if I ever tried to hit a real golf ball over our house, it'd be the
end. Hey, dude, we got lots to catch up on here. I want to lead off a little bit with some local sports roundup. First of all, let's start off with the Blue Golds because, I was at the game, Ken Anderson's game. What a Saturday, by the way, for the Blue Golds overall.
Oh, I know.
That game, I mean, it was intense. I will say, Superior's coach and that bench is very animated throughout a game. I don't know how they can keep that energy going, but they did. Went to overtime. Blue Golds able to win. 5th straight win for Coach Malvik's group.
And then they've been playing some battles this whole year. Even the ones they lost were battles.
One possession games.
Yeah, exactly.
So they win. Tanya England's group wins on a last-second layup.
And same with them.
Yeah,
just like nail-biting games which is going to be good when they get to conference play.
Right. So you had that. Men's hockey taking down River Falls.
Yep.
Women's hockey getting a win. Men's wrestling standout. I think second place at MSOE Invitational. I mean, what a day to be a Blue Gold on Saturday.
What a great one. I mean, we start off with the basketball teams, and I think it's almost like you can lump the hockey teams in there too. The women's hockey team's been probably the most consistent, but took their lumps on the River Falls game. But they got that win over Gustavus Adolphus,
right?
And then come back and win another big one here. So they're looking as strong as they normally do. Men's basketball team, you get those couple of first games where you're just losing by a shot, and now you're turning it around, and the guys are figuring out ways to get the wins, and that's huge. And really, again, like these teams always don't shy away when they play non-conference schedules, and that's going to help. And Tanya would, they had some big leads that they blew early in the season, now have come back and figuring out something again as we get towards conference, and that's the way they work.
Yeah.
So I mean, for those teams, it's been great. And then the men's hockey team, talking with Lohner on Wednesday, you could tell that there wasn't any negativity with what he was saying. He's like, we're practicing great, we're doing everything great. They just about beat St. Norbert, and again, they want the win, so they're not good. But you can see them kind of starting to maybe turn that corner as well as we get towards that. You'll have that little Christmas break, but the final wrap up here before they have that break. And there's a lot of good momentum in the wrestling team. I mean, that team is just insane, and the momentum that they always carry is pretty great there. So you look at all those teams combined, like you said, it was a great weekend for the Blue Golds. And I would say, and then of course the Ken Anderson being honored,
right? And it was cool too, just if anybody hasn't been to the new Sontag Center too, but with I'll call it the boxes in the corner there too, but a lot of people came back for Ken Anderson, former players and such, to support their former coach. I mean, one of those boxes was just packed full of people. Up there too. So that was cool.
And what a legend! What a legend! And a lot of he could have just shied away and walked away from the program, but you'll see Ken Anderson at all these games supporting. And he's I figured this out. It almost crazy, but he's been retired longer now than he coached.
Really?
At the Blue Golds,
wow!
If I'm not mistaken, I think 95 was his last year, so 29 years ago, and he coached the Blue Golds for 27 years.
Man.
But you wouldn't think that because he's such a presence,
right?
And not like one that's trying to take anything away from games, but just a guy who loves this school and loves to go to the games and support the programs. And for him to be honored, and I mean, the man deserves every honor that he's got. I mean, that best winning percentage of like any division. What he did with the Blue Golds. I mean, I love there's the big the court from the Zorn that they have, the Ken Anderson court cut out that's on one of the walls there. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so much. If you go back and look at the history and D3 basketball in this area when it was NAIA, and it's just amazing what Ken Anderson did out there.
If there was and I remember reading about it in Bo Ryan's book, Another Hill to Climb, but if there was a way, like, I could just go back and just watch some of those games with Bo and Ken Anderson,
Well, just think of the names you had. I mean, Dick Bennett as well. You know, at Stevens Point. I mean, there were so many legendary coaches. And it's fun because this generation is so fun to watch, too, of the and they're the ones that built the WIAC into the premier Division III conference. And it is on their shoulders that all these other players are getting there and other coaches. But yeah, I mean, those are your Mount Rushmore of WIAC sports right there.
And just think about too, I gotta imagine, Ken probably could have went to a bigger program if he wanted to.
Well,
right?
the talk of him being able to go to Wisconsin wanted him, and he stayed. Because he liked being here, and that just shows you how much he loves the area and how much he loved that school and just the legacy that he put down for the Blue Golds.
Absolutely. So that was awesome to see, and yeah, it was quite the game too with that Superior team. I mean, there was one kid on there. I mean, he was the top player. I mean, he was just dropping, like leading his team in points, and there was some trash talk going on from fans in the stadiums too. So it felt like a college atmosphere, which was cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it felt like it. So
that's Sonanteg. I mean, again, if you haven't caught a game there, go. I mean, there's not a bad seat in the house.
No,
and it's just such a fun. It looks big, but it is still. It's very cozy. When you're in there. And you're right there with the game. So yeah, I mean, if you haven't caught a game yet, get out there and see one.
Absolutely. So. But yeah, Coach Mulvik's team, I mean, they're off to a fantastic start too. When you I know they're probably a little disappointed in their couple losses just because it was just by one possession, but you got to tell that program's trending in the right direction too. With that, so
you can't, that's what you want. Step into a program and you've already got momentum. And you're already, the recruits that are already committing to come here, you got them already. So I mean that creates waves, and yeah, I think if things are really moving in the right direction.
Speaking of the WIAC overall too, I mean, over the weekend we got to shout out your alma mater taking down the #1 team in the country. Stevens Point's off to a 7-0 starts with the Pointers. Also help from a former Medford alum, Logan Baumgartner, who had 16 points in that game. But I mean, that's good for the conference overall when you got teams like Point and Eau Claire and that getting back into the top rankings.
Yeah, and it's going to just be battles. I mean, the conference is always tough, but I feel like this year, and you're seeing these teams. And even Stout's starting to get some momentum. Had a couple wins in a row for them, and then they had a rough start to this. And teams don't shy away from playing tough guys. Stout this week has an NDSU, a D1 team. And that you don't see that much other than like maybe the start of his exhibition season. But they do, they're doing it here in the middle of December So yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I mean, conference play, be it whatever sport it is in this conference, it's just so tough. And so much fun to watch. So I think, we're bound to have some good, thrilling games at the Sonanteg over at Johnson Fieldhouse. I mean, it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So I know there was a lot going on this past weekend, too. I know our good buddy Brandon was over at Stout, speaking of which, watching a lot of local over there with their big events with some local teams over there, too.
And Colfax had the girls event as well for girls basketball. So, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to watch basketball game, this weekend you had ample opportunity, especially that Stout one. I mean, I think it's 12 teams or something like that over there. And I think Colfax was about the same. So starting from 10 in the morning till 8:30 at night. So a very fun, especially this time of year when, you're getting those games in and teams are starting to hit their stride. And these are important games. And you can see the difference, the maturation from the start of the season for a lot of these teams to once we get past the break, it's just getting that court strength, and anybody who plays basketball knows it takes a while to kind of get your body back into that fast slow. It's just such a different thing. So I think these teams are starting to really round very well.
And I know going to wrestling, Eau Claire North had a fantastic weekend too at the Johnson Creek Classic. Champions again? This year.
Jake's over there at North is just glowing after that. So and it's
huge program this year too. What the record numbers, I think.
And that's the thing. The sport just keeps growing and growing. And we had the invite over at Mondovi as well this last week for girls
Mhm.
and boys. So, and we'll have this weekend. The Huskies are hosting their invite. They have a
Mhm.
quad at least and two, and so does Chi High. So, yeah, a lot of wrestling going on this weekend.
So, yeah, I think, yeah, just record numbers too, and that's even on the women's side too.
Hmm.
More from that
And that
as well.
sport just continues to grow, and
Right.
that's good. And giving that opportunity and having them have that other sport
Mhm.
and show what they can do out on the mats, it really is more. The more you can get involvement and more opportunities, the better.
Mhm. I know last week too, we had some BRC, hockey matchups, and that looks again to be one of the
Oh,
best conferences, if not the best conference in the
yeah.
state.
You always kind of wonder what it's going to be like going into the because you don't really know until they get
Mhm.
out on the ice. But man, just seeing the matchups that they had there in that Chi High and Memorial, both with brand new coaches, didn't seem like anything changed. A 4-4 tie,
Mhm. And
but
after overtime
if
and that,
double overtime,
yep.
yeah. But another team that's getting out of the BRC is Ram Hockey is off to an outstanding start as well. So
Mhm.
that the hockey in this area is just top notch, if
Mhm.
not some of the best in the state, if not the best in the state, is in this area. I got a chance to actually go watch a youth team on our neighbor's kid, Ben's kid
Oh,
from
yeah, yep, shout out, Ben.
Ben. Yeah, the Eau Claire Mustangs are over there playing at Acrovic rink, and just to watch that and just see that it's like, okay, this is in a few years,
Mhm.
5-6 years, this is when we're going to be able to see what's going on in this area for hockey. So it's really fun, and just the community atmosphere that comes with being a hockey parent, because it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
easy. I mean, I don't I'm not a hockey parent, but I know enough hockey parents is like that. It is a commitment,
Mhm.
and the family that grows with that, and then just goes to these teams when they get to high school and then off to college. It's pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. I know this was last week too, but I mean, we talked a little bit with Brand about it, but I mean, going back to girls basketball really quick, what a win for Chippewa Falls McDonald over Regis
Oh,
last week
what
too.
an atmosphere of a game, that
Mhm.
Regis with that beautiful new gymnasium too. And Regis has been playing some really good basketball. And
Mhm.
again, they played a tough schedule. Teddy has them playing great teams in and out. And then McDonald comes in, and you're not sure what you're going to get. McDonald's a younger team this year, but
Mhm.
what a battle. They were down. I got there at halftime, and they're down 7-8 points, and it looked like Regis was going to run away with it. But McDonald just kept battling and battling. And in the
Mhm.
end, somehow got over the hump and got that 3-point win. But those two teams, I mean, they face each other. That's a good rivalry. That
Mhm.
obviously there's a lot of background stuff with that rivalry now, but
Right.
just on the court, it was fun to watch, and we'll see. I think it's the boys' turn this week for McDonald and Regis as well. So, and then they'll have the return matchups coming up later in the season. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, looking at girls basketball in this area has been just outstanding so far. I mean, you
Mhm.
got teams. You got Elk Mound and Colfax, and McDonald, Regis, Durand, Arkansas. I mean, they're then on the D1 side, Memorial and Eau Claire North,
Mhm.
Manual.
Yeah.
I'm just naming teams, but it's because there's so much quality teams, and I apologize if I left any. Fall Creek,
Right.
throw them out there as well. So yeah, there's a lot of really good basketball out here on both sides, and yeah, again, it's just a spoil of riches to be
Mhm.
able to cover sports in this area and cover those local sports. I'm spoiled because there are so many great teams and so many great athletes and so many great just fans out there too.
Mhm. Exactly. Well said, sir. Well said. All right, we're gonna take a quick break here because there's a lot more I want to get to with you while we got you here. I want to get back to some more baseball talk too.
All right.
Tell your kids to play baseball. To grow up to be a baseball player. Apparently, that's where the the money's at
Oh
right
yeah.
now. Holy moly! So, and I thought we were going to only talk about Willie Adamas here this morning, but you had Soto making that a huge record, sports record deal over there too. So we'll get back to that. We got some more football talk as well. We got to talk some Badger football. They've got their new offensive coordinator and maybe a change back to the good old days in terms of philosophy over there too.
Mhm.
So we'll talk some about that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Dealing with any aches and pains this season, an injury that just doesn't seem to heal? Hey, you don't have to live your life dealing with pain every single day. With Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, you can start to live your life pain-free. Whether you are a professional athlete, weekend warrior, or simply have an aching joint, rest assured that you will receive unsurpassed care delivered with compassion and respect. Make your appointment today by visiting cvosm.com and start living that pain-free healthy life. We've got Justice Cleveland, WEAU 13 News in studio with us. And well, we just did some local sports roundup here, kind of a local thing here, but Badger, it's not official yet, but widely report out there. Jeff Grimes, the Kansas Jayhawks offensive coordinator, will be the next offensive coordinator at Wisconsin. Grimes has more than 30 years of coaching experience, and he has served as offensive coordinator the past 7 seasons. BYU from 2018 to 2020, Baylor from 2021 to 2023, and this past season with Kansas, where Kansas was the 16th ranked rushing offense in the, or excuse me, 13th ranked rushing offense, 211.4 yards per game on the ground. So it seems like that maybe the Badgers will be going back to what was their bread and butter for the longest time, a running attack.
Yeah, and I think you got a guy who's a former offensive lineman. I think that's huge because the way the line played last year was not what you expect from a Wisconsin team. It just, the protection wasn't there, and even the running gaps weren't there. So I think for that, I think you're hoping that they can reopen up that what was Wisconsin, like you said, their bread and butter was that run game, pound it and get it to go up. But obviously, in this day and age, you're still going to need some kind of passing game to balance it out a little bit, just because of the way defenses are playing now. But they did nothing. There was no balance this year.
Right.
So I think we'll see what can happen here with that. But got to be optimistic. Again, it's going to be for Luke Fickell a make or break year coming up this year. I think the expectations were so high, and they're not even coming close to what I think people want. And they're sinking below the level they were at before he came in.
Exactly. So it's a name that's probably not like people are probably like who, it's not a flashy name or anything like that. Some of the names that were being floated was like Herman. Tom Herman was floated out there and all that. So it's not the flashiest of names. But when you look at the numbers and you say, okay, this is a guy that is probably going to run the football a whole lot more. For Badger fan, you got to be maybe cautiously optimistic that'll return to that.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you can find a way to find success in sustain drives, which that was a huge problem for this last season, was just not being able to stay on the field.
Right.
And then you're putting so much pressure on your defense. And eventually, the defense cracked after playing stellar defense for so many weeks. And then towards the end of the season, it just seemed like they were wore down and teams found a way to wear them down. So, yeah, I think you just got to find something on offense to keep that defense that played at a high level for a lot of those games. Again, what they did against some of the top teams in the country to keep them in the game when your offense is doing nothing, you got to find some balance there.
One other thing that might be a sign of things to come too is that the Badgers will be probably hiring a quarterbacks coach, because a lot of times in college you have your offensive coordinator that's also the quarterbacks coach. But since Grimes is an offensive lineman by trade, as you mentioned, there's talk that, okay, now Wisconsin may be looking to bring in a quarterback coach for this year, which good. Get somebody who's more familiar with the quarterbacks to work with them over there.
Oh, exactly. And I think, it takes less off his plate to have to do that. And then, like you said, I think that line's such a big thing to work on that I think we'll see him have total focus on that to get that, to open up those running lanes and protect that quarterback.
I agree. So got to imagine that's going to be probably announced here soon, since it's like all over the place now at this point. But so, all right, your thoughts, Badger fans, your reaction, thumbs up, thumbs down on that hire. How about we'll get the college football playoff we'll get to here in a little bit too, but thumbs up, thumbs down on that. Did they get it right? Did they? And no Alabama, which Nick Saban's pissed about, even though he's not with there. I mean, I get to the point where he was trying to make, he's like, what does it matter with strength of schedule anymore if we're not going to factor that in? Obviously, he's relating to what Alabama's schedule was, with that. But, we had some listeners say 3 losses should get you out of it,
right?
So, but I honestly, when I looked at it, I didn't really have any problem with it, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, looking at those match, I mean, there's gonna be some really fun matchups,
Mhm.
especially those like the not playing games, but those first round games. I mean,
Right.
this is what you want. You want these matchups, and you have basically a month worth of bowl games,
Mhm.
3 weeks basically, that are gonna just be really, really fun to watch. And this is what it's it's insane that it's taken us this long to get there. But
Right.
I mean, Clemson, Texas, that's a spicy matchup.
Yeah.
That's a spicy meatball.
I like
That's
that.
not going to be my trademark. Tennessee, Ohio State, a 9.
Gosh, yeah, and
Yeah.
then the winner, Oregon, congrats, you get that guy. You
Yeah.
get that team.
SMU, Penn State is a really good matchup too. I mean,
Mhm.
these are all, again, none of these are going to be bad matchups. And then I think the most intriguing one is that Indiana Notre Dame, because
Mhm.
that's not just a matchup in the playoffs. That's recruiting ground. That's two teams
Yep.
that fight for the same area. Now, granted, both national teams in this day
Mhm.
and age in football, but that's about as close to a regional matchup as you're going to get.
I think if
Like-
Indiana wins that does more to that program. I mean, Notre Dame's gonna be Notre Dame, right?
Right.
But if Indiana goes in there and beats Notre Dame in the first ever college football playoff, that is gonna be big time.
Right. On their own turf.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that would be just amazing. Then, yeah, Georgia's up next for that.
Right.
I mean, Boise State, I mean,
Can you imagine
what a
if
sneaky team, though, really. Like
Right.
all of a sudden, Boise State's the 3 and gets a bye.
I know a lot of people are saying Penn State's got the easiest path because they play SMU, then they would play Boise State if they were to win. It may be the case, but I look at this too. I kind of want to see Boise State versus SMU in the Fiesta Bowl.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
That would be kind of fun to watch too.
So, we got different names in there.
Yep.
And that's what people wanted. Obviously, Clemson making it in is always probably going to be the one that,
Mhm.
but that was going to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Somebody from that conference is going to get in, and somebody's going to be mad because it's just they have more losses than it, but they also play in the toughest conference.
Yep.
So
Got it. I mean, Arizona State, for all the stuff that's going on with them and financial stuff, for them to be getting a bye and where they're at, that's credit to
Right.
that program.
I think,
So,
if you really go down, I think with the Boise State and Arizona State, these aren't your traditional.
right.
Boise State's is a football powerhouse, but not like
They're not the Alabama Georgias
right,
and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
They're not the power conference, and,
Mhm.
but they've also been there. They've played in some big games, but
Yep.
like Arizona State has really turned it around. I think it was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Hiram Edwards was still the coach there, and then
It was
got
not
fired
good.
at
Well, Antonio Pierce has sanctions against him too from being an assistant coach with recruiting violations.
Right.
So if he goes back to a college game, he's that hole he's got to
Show-
sit out
show
or show
cause.
cause.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that's quite the turnaround for that program. So wonder if our good buddy Mr. Verdugo is rooting on his former Sun Devil team.
Oh, I'm
Mater over
sure.
there. So but yeah, I looked at it, I'm like, I got no problem with it, to be honest with you.
No, and I
don't.
love the expansion.
Mhm.
And maybe do we need to go bigger than this? Maybe.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be people like, see, we got to get Alabama in, so we got to expand it more.
Right.
That's,
But
but
have
the thing is, you expand it, then there's going to be more like, well, we got to expand it more.
yeah,
That's
you can't go too far.
Right.
I again, this is much. We grew up in a time when the polls decided the national champion.
Mhm.
Like to have an actual playoff now is such
where
a
it's
bit.
decided on the field.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it took forever to do this, and it probably should have happened 30 years ago.
Mhm.
But at least we're at the point where there are a team like an SMU
Right.
has a chance to surprise people and win a national title.
I agree. All right, moving to baseball here. So Willie Adames is no longer a Brewer, which we all kind of knew. I mean, Mark Ganasio was already pretty much telling us during the postseason it was probably not going to happen.
Right.
But 7 years, 182 million going to the Giants. And then Juan Soto had to follow that up by just edging him out. 15 years, 765 million, which makes that contract look like chunk change at that point.
But it's the Mets, and this
Mhm.
seems like something that the Mets have time and time again screwed up.
Yeah.
And
I
I
think it's too much. 765. No deferred money either, is what I was reading.
yeah,
That's
I don't, and I've seen this take before. Juan Soto's a star, but is he a star to the point where you're going to see games because of Juan Soto?
mhm.
And I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for the Mets, you hope so, because that's the biggest investment in baseball history you just made.
Mhm.
But is it? I don't know. I think he's a great player, but I don't know if he's not Shohei Ohtani.
Mhm.
Ohtani's not only a player, but he's an attraction.
Right. Right.
is Juan Soto an attraction to where people are going to say, I have to go see the Mets play because Juan Soto's there?
I think what this thing tells me here too, we're going to see a $1 billion player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it'll probably be the Dodgers, and it'll be deferred for like 40 years.
right. But I mean, you're talking. I was listening to Jeff Passan last night when he was on SVP, and he even talked about it. He's like, this is more than what he thought. I think a lot of people thought. Like they were originally saying maybe 620 million, but the fact that it got up to 765, that's not that far off from $1 billion. Somebody in baseball is going to get $1 billion.
It's crazy.
I don't know who. It's probably nobody we know about, but it's going to have to be a younger guy like a Juan Soto that's hitting the free agency market.
Yeah, and the problem is with this, and especially with baseball, since there are no controls,
and there never will be anymore.
And it's only going to get passed on to the consumer. So I mean, I'm not a Mets fan. I'm not going to any Mets games, but I got to imagine if you're paying that much for a player, your ticket prices are going to be going up a tad bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
So I don't know. For the Mets, a lot of things they do and a lot of moves they make just kind of reek of, you're desperate.
How much? It's fascinating to me, and we'll never know the true answer to this. But David Stearns is the guy, the general manager, the president over there, where he comes from the Brewers from all these years, and I know he was with the Houston Astros before that a little bit. To me, it's always fascinating to see these guys because when David Stearns was in Milwaukee, it was all about developing the younger players and budget and all that. Then he goes to New York where it's empty pocketbooks. Like I was fascinated to see how is he going to build that team. Well, this offseason, he's been shelling out Steve Cohen's checkbook right now with Frankie Matas and now this.
And it's not, I don't think this is David Stearns making
That's
what
I don't think it is either.
You have an owner that wants to, you're not making this deal unless your owner's like, I want him.
That's why I don't think David Stearns was even in negotiations. Probably.
Right. No, exactly. That's my feeling too. It's like, it just doesn't seem like something he's going to go out there and say, hey, here's $700 million. Come play for us. This is an owner just being like, all right, I want this player. I want us to compete. We're in North. We're the little brother. Let's go out there and make a splash. But the Mets history is. I mean, go back 2 years ago when they signed Verlander.
And Max Scherzer.
And like they had all these veteran players, and by a month and a half, 2 months in, they were already dealing those guys. Well, you're not dealing this contract until. What is it, 15 years?
15-year long
15-year contract for a guy who's 26? 20. So you're
27?
He
can opt out after 5, too. It's like, all right, maybe he will be the $1 billion player. I don't know. But.
I mean, again, more power to Juan Soto. He was a great player, and maybe this is where he goes, and it just like turns out that he was, but they were, if he leads them to a World Series, but it's just getting crazy. I mean, this is the laziest take ever that salaries are out of control, but baseball wise, the deferred payments, it's going to come back and bite one of these teams in the butt. Like some team's going to go bankrupt because they have too many deferred payments and they're not going to be able to, they're going to default on these payments. I mean, the Dodgers are one of the most valuable teams in probably sports. I would dare say sport.
Right. Oh yeah.
They're such a, it's Yankees and Dodgers when you think of baseball right away, but I feel like you're just playing with fire with all these deferred payments. At some point it's going to come back and really hurt a team. And it's just, again, it's a lot of finances and stuff that accounting that I'm not privy to, but it's pretty crazy that they can it doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, money doesn't matter right now, especially if you're the Dodgers. Like anybody's out there, well, we'll just sign you to the deferred thing. They would have got Soto. Would you have been surprised?
No. That's why when it was out there that I'm like, oh, it was going to annoy me, but it was going to surprise me, at that point. And that's, I'm a Brewers fan. You're Brewers too. There. I mean, does it take away your fanism a little bit when you see these teams, knowing that your team's never going to be? Because when you see Willie Adames, 7 years, 182, and we were pretty much told, yeah, we ain't spending on him. Does it take away a little bit from that knowing, or does it like, what? Just used to it. I know what we're all about. I know how this team's going to be built in that. So maybe you're kind of already set up for that. I mean, obviously Jackson Churio, they took that risk, and I feel like that's what they're going to have to do is sign their younger guys to long deals. And hopefully after a couple of years, it's like, oh, they got cheap. They're getting by cheap.
Like that Ryan Braun deal by the end didn't look like a huge deal.
Right.
But when you first sign it, it does. I mean, I think baseball's a great equalizer in the fact that teams can compete like the Brewers without the huge payroll. can they do? I mean, and for the Brewers to do what they've done year in and year out is pretty amazing. But it's almost like running on a treadmill. At some point, if you don't get to the top, you're
Mhm.
gonna fall back. And I think, we saw like with Kansas City, they came back this year, but
Right.
after going to the World Series, they dropped. Like,
Yeah.
and these other teams don't have those big drop offs.
Mhm.
Dodgers haven't had a drop off in how many years? So
Right.
that's where I think it's easier to maintain if you're the Dodgers because you just have the talent to keep throwing in there. But if you're the Brewers, you're depleting your farm system. You're trying whatever you can do to just stay up there in our top. And if you don't have a good farm system, or if you have an off year, it
Mhm.
can get ugly quickly. So I don't know. Baseball's finances have been broken forever. That's not going to change because the owners aren't.
Players aren't gonna spend the top tier players, right? Like,
Yeah,
if there was a salary cap, Juan Soto ain't getting
no,
$765 million.
players don't want to know.
No.
They did maybe a while ago because you would have dispersed it a lot more. But
Mhm.
at this point,
I mean, what was it? Gary Sanchez got like $8 million or something like that. I mean, when you're getting these guys, backup players that are getting
right?
almost double digit figures every year, it's like they don't want that.
No, if the
No.
salaries are the medium salaries going up,
Mhm.
I just always find it funny with like that. And then they're like, oh, well, we got to cut the minor leagues because
Right.
those guys are getting paid too much down there. It's like you created this system, the owners do, and then it's
Mhm.
like let's find a way to scrimp money away from other people. So
Yep. Yeah, it's just for me, it's frustrating to see it's the usual suspects because whenever we have a big free agent, we always could come up with a list, right? We don't need
right,
an insider to tell us who's in the running. We kind of know who it is.
yeah. If it's a
Yeah.
California team,
Yep. Yep.
almost all of them. I mean, I don't other than
Yeah.
the,
California,
the
East
one
Coast.
glaring example,
Yeah.
Oakland. But other
Yeah.
than that, everybody
Well,
else.
hell, they just signed
Right. We
Severino.
got to make a statement when we're playing in our 15,000 seat stadium in Sacramento.
Right? So it's like, East Coast or what, but it's frustrating. But I mean, at the same time, I guess I'm at that point where I know what to expect from the Brewer. But
Yeah.
you're right. It's like they could compete, but is that deciding factor then? Once they get to the postseason, do they have enough?
Right. And I'm more like if you're in competition and you're leading the division, are you going to make the moves? Even
Mhm.
if it's just to rent a player for the half of the year to the second half, are you willing to make those moves?
Mhm.
And that's where sometimes with the Brewers, it's been like we're not really improving at the deadline.
Right.
They're doing a little bit of I almost
Patchwork
I
sort
didn't
of thing?
wee bomb there, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? As in they're not improving.
Right.
Yeah, it's a reliever here or there, but it's never the CC Sabathia deal.
Right. That might be
We
the
haven't
perfect
seen
example.
that
Mhm.
really with them in a while there, and you've seen them sell guys. I mean, the Hater deal is the one that'll just always it's like,
Mhm.
okay, you're in competition and you're dealing a great reliever like that. So
Right.
yeah, that's more where I want to see them. If you're going to spend and you have a team that's in competition, get something to shore it up. And I think Twins fans would be on that same boat because this last year, not making any moves basically cost you
Mhm.
the season.
Right. Yeah. Heck, even what was it 18 when they got Moustakis?
Yeah.
Something like that, even a
Right.
little bit.
Yeah, there just hasn't been. And again, I don't what tier can they compete at with getting these guys?
Mhm.
And what are you giving away?
I agree. So, all right. We'll take a quick break here. Can you stay late, or you guys?
Yeah, we can do it.
7:45?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I forgot to tell you we don't have a 7:45, so
Okay.
we can go to 8. So if you're good with that,
Yeah.
If you're good with that, I want to throw a Packer philosophy at you.
All right.
Get your reaction to this. We're gonna go a little philosophical
Ooh.
with this.
I'll put my thinking hat on, my dunce hat.
I got a magic 8 ball if you want to help. If that helps you out.
That usually it's the best way to go.
Quick break here, and we'll be back to finish up the second hour with our dude, Mr. JC Nisi, Justice Cleveland, coming up after these quick words. Are you hosting family and friends for the holiday season this year? Hey, that can be pretty stressful trying to figure out what to prepare, who likes what to eat, and so on. Well, you can take some of that stress off your plate by simply visiting Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. Whether you'll be tackling the cooking yourself or you need some help with preparing meals this holiday season, Hy-Vee can help you out in so many different ways. Whether you want to shop and save some money or you need some catering help for future events, Hy-Vee in Eau Claire has you covered. Stop on in and get started today. All right, wrapping up this hour here with our main guy, Justice Cleveland. So I know we're a few days away from, or a few days removed from the latest loss to the Lions and such, and we got Seattle coming up here. I want to throw a theory or a little philosophical thing at you.
All right.
So we saw the Lions again, kind of employ a quicker pass game wide, zone defense from Green Bay and such, and the Lions offense just never felt to the point where when Green Bay took the lead, you weren't comfortable, and in that. Do you believe that Jeff Hafley right now, with his defense, kind of isn't able to do what he all wants to? Because let's go back to offseason when he was first hired. You heard, or at least Packers fans heard exactly what they wanted to hear: man-to-man coverage, aggressive coverage,
Right.
and all that. Do you believe too where I'm trying to word this correctly, that he's kind of not able to do what he wants to do? Maybe his hands are tied to where that's why he's running some more zone, but at the same time that's also related to what the offense is doing, where they're doing long extended drives. They're super hyper focused on running the game because you're draining the clock. You don't want to give extra possessions to teams like the Lions. I mean, that first half we saw Jordan Love 3 of 7,
Right.
throw the
Yeah.
ball 7 times there. I mean, is this also showing how important Jair Alexander is to this team? And at that point too is like, I think we maybe know some of the top priorities in the next coming offseason is probably going to be corners here. Is the cornerback depth, is that the position that's maybe holding back this defense from really doing what Jeff Hafley wants to do?
I think in a way, yes, because you're not able to get that pressure if you're not covering those guys. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if you want to get that extended pressure on the quarterback, and you're, I don't want to discount Keyshawn Nixon because
Mhm.
he came up with a big play. But if he's probably your best cover
Mhm.
guy out there right now, I think you that's where like to me that's where like you're missing Jair, because that Jair obviously I think is your best cover guy
Mhm.
normally. Keyshawn's doing a good job of filling in. I just don't know if Keyshawn's on that level of Jair.
Right.
A very solid pro, and I don't want to discount all he's done, but I think teams see that.
Yeah.
And they know that, like, I mean, he's the middle of the field and open a ton. And they've had quarterbacks who are able to kind of pick them apart that way too. So
Right.
yeah, but I think you're right. I think right now it's a cornerback, and we saw this last year with the the attrition that they've had in that defensive backfield
Mhm.
really does change all of what you can do
Mhm.
with that pressure. So and if you're trying to blitz and you want that man coverage, it's tough when you don't have your full complement of guys out there. And I think we saw it earlier in the season more when they had those guys healthy.
Mhm.
And McKinney was out there and able to kind of almost cherry pick where he was going and get
Right.
those interceptions. But as the seasons went on, yeah, you've seen that attrition happen in that backfield, and I think like you said, I think it's affected the whole defense.
Mhm. Yeah, I just, I was just thinking, well, shout out to Jake who had thrown that out there. Like, you look at the defense and maybe not. That's why they're playing a lot more zone. And then the complementary part of this is LaFleur's like, okay, we're going to run the football a lot because we don't want the opposing team to have extra possessions. We're going to try to get those 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And I don't mind the offense doing that regardless.
Right. No, I mean, that's
you know,
ball control offense it's not a bad thing at all. And,
exactly.
everybody's so used to, I think, in this day and age of just the high performance, things are revved up to a million RPMs, offense is running. It's a lot better when you can control those possessions and you're not giving that other team a chance to go out there time and time again.
And I think this was from Ben Fennell yesterday, which I think kind of surprises some people. Completions with over 25 air yards, Jordan Love leads the league
I can believe
at
that because he takes
15.
the chances. He
Mhm.
takes the shots down the field a lot.
Mhm. I think, for some, maybe that's surprising, like, oh, because we're so run, 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 but it's run and then big plays.
They try to gash him,
Right.
which is, I mean, that's a philosophy that's nothing new.
Right. Exactly.
And they've found ways to do it. And even like there's plays that aren't, unfortunately Christian Watson fumbles, but it's a big completion and would have been a big yardage gain. So yeah, I think I was thinking about this driving in. It's like the tier level between the Lions, Packers, and Vikings, I think it's razor thin. Each of those teams can play at an outstanding level, but each of those teams lets teams back in too.
Right.
Detroit does. We saw it. Detroit has the chance in some of these games to kind of just put them away, and sometimes they don't.
Right.
They could score a lot of points, and that's kind of been their savior in that. I mean, we've seen Minnesota all year long play these razor thin margin games, so they, teams have chances there. So I think the level between those three and that division, it's really razor thin. So Green Bay's right there. I think the fact that they've, all their losses have come to teams with 9 wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2 losses to the Lions, Minnesota, and Philly.
Yeah.
The 3 teams with the best records in the NFC.
And the games they were all in. The Lions game being the one where maybe they weren't, the 24-14 game.
Right.
But I mean, Philadelphia, they had a chance.
They made that comeback against Minnesota.
Yep. So, I mean, it's obviously it's getting the tournament. I think for any of these teams in the NFC, it's getting the tournament because I just don't see the separation. Now, granted, the Lions record-wise looks great.
Right.
But especially those NFC North teams, all 3 of those teams would have a chance to do something and make noise in the playoffs.
I feel like they would be 3 teams that maybe that phrase nobody wants to see in the playoffs,
right?
Sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Because I think any given game they're able to turn it up, and if that you get that defense clicking and those offense clicking, they can just score in bunches and stop you. But it's just been a matter of these teams kind of had times when they've let people back in. So there's not a team in the league that looks like they're so much above everybody. Not even Kansas City in my mind.
No, I mean they got a doink in last game-winning field goal last night. So
Buffalo, I mean,
they just got a loss in a shootout.
Yeah, you give up 44 points. I mean, the Rams with their full talent back are a different team, but yeah. And I love that I got to play against Puka in like every league that I was in. Great. I have one and Josh Allen.
Oh,
so 90 points right there in like a PPR league from 2 guys. I'm like, it's fantasy football in a nutshell right there.
Holy moly. Well, this should be, coming up this weekend, you got Bills visiting the Lions. Bills coming off that loss.
Right. And I think that's a really good preview of what we could see in the playoffs from these teams. So, yeah, both Detroit's going to have that little extended bye, too. So,
yep, exactly. So, but I just, it's thinking about this. And like we mentioned, too, Green Bay, their 4 losses are all against these teams. But does it also say maybe they're just not quite ready to close out those games and take that jump? I mean, is that the other opposite? Where they're not quite at the Lions and Eagles level?
I think so. Closing out games is that they're just not quite there. And I think Sunday's as much as people are like, it's Seattle. Seattle has a chance to basically close out their division. They get a win here. They're in the driver's seat and pretty much are going to win that West if they win. And it's at Seattle. So, I mean, there's some really, you talked about the Detroit, there's some good matchups coming up here that, are going to determine the playoff settings here. So I feel like this is a playoff game for the Packers here. Like you treat this as a playoff game because this is a team that you might see in the playoffs if you do. So you're on the road, you're in prime time. I would treat this as, hey, they should have it now. We got to win out to even have a chance at the division, which is so much out there. It's hard to do, but yeah, I think treat it as a playoff game.
Yeah, because I think Seattle's going to treat it as a playoff game, is what you mentioned. But they got Green Bay, then they got Minnesota the week after. Then it's like their NFC North run here. Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago, and then they finish up against the Rams, which, depending on how Seattle does, that game might be for a division championship.
You got to give the kudos to the schedule makers. Because, to get these matchups, at this point in the season, which is crazy that we're already in week 15.
Yeah.
It goes by so fast.
We're in the final quarter right now.
Yeah. So, to have these matchups, here's the Packers, you've got Seattle, you got New Orleans, which is no pushover by any means. And then, of course, that Vikings game looms. And, Chicago wants to play spoilers on week 18.
Especially at Lambeau.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, they do.
So, this next month here of games, the intensity's ramping up.
What did you think of Dan Campbell's decision on 4th and inches to go for instead of kick the field goal?
You know what?
If it doesn't work, he's getting ridiculed. probably from some.
Right.
But maybe he's done so many times where it's not surprising anymore.
It's easy to do when you're in the position that they're in.
Does he do it in the playoffs, though?
I don't know if you do it in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan Campbell, like, if you would have told me 3 years ago and he did that, I'd be like, oh, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
But he's more Riverboat Ron, Riverboat Dan.
Yeah.
Like, but that's, I mean, credit to that. He's a hard guy not to like. I know he probably grates a lot of Packer fans, but
it's because he's winning now and he's been dominating against
right.
Green Bay. That's what it is.
But he has 100% belief in his teams.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to say, no, let's go out there. We get this first down. We, in essence, end the game.
Mm-hmm.
And to have the guts to do it.
I don't know of any other coaches that would have the guts to do it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
How many other coaches would have the guts to do that?
John Harbaugh, maybe.
Maybe.
He makes some. Sometimes, though, his are more on the, like, irrational,
mm-hmm.
like, that doesn't even make sense moves.
Right.
But
because there's some, like, okay, when Campbell went for it in his own territory and Green Bay ended up getting a touchdown, you know, you look at those moves. Does he do that in the playoffs?
Right.
I don't know if he does in the playoffs. You know, is he a little bit more of a gambler?
And it's
that
even,
way?
I would say with the Campbell thing, it's more of a calculated risk in this one. You don't
mm-hmm.
get it. The ball's turned over. You go to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have a shot.
Right.
It's not like if you were down 3 and you're like, you wouldn't do that because why would you do it? It wouldn't make any sense. But
right.
That's a Harbaugh. But I mean, it was such a calculated risk, but I give him 100% credit for saying, hey, no, let's do this. We get this. We run the clock out.
Mm-hmm.
Kick the field goal, game's over.
Because it's easy for a lot of us who maybe play Madden or Tecmo Bowl, and when was the last time we were talking? Brandon and I were just talking about that Thursday. When was the last time you did Tecmo Bowl?
Hasn't been this year. Maybe I'll bring it back from like the Minnesota game.
Okay,
it's been a while. There's so many imitators out. Not to say that anybody was imitating me, but there's so many like those kind of things out there. It's like
But we were talking about that on Thursday. We missed those. So.
Okay. Maybe I'll bring them back here for like the final run.
All right. But I mean, it's easy for us to say, oh, I would have gone for that too. Or, okay, put yourself in an episode where it's like maybe your job is, not saying Dan Campbell's job was on the line, but
you're 5-6
mm-hmm.
or you're 6-5 and you're making that decision. You're probably playing for overtime just to like not risk that opportunity. Not even overtime, but playing for the kick. And then if you give them 5-10 seconds, the end of the game,
right?
Be it, but to just put the nail in the coffin with that move, it's gutsy. It really was.
It was, and you know what?
That's why they love him though in Detroit. Like that's why they love that man as a head coach, and it's hard not to watch him and be like, okay, I can see how playing for him has just got to be a lot of fun because he's right there and he's living and dying on every play.
I feel like the talking heads. If Jared Goff, when he tripped, if he would have lost the football when he tripped,
right.
You would have had the talking head say, this is why you don't do that, because you can have scenarios like this where it could happen.
The Joe Pacharczyk, like if he falls back there, fumbles the ball, and the Packers scoop and score.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're seeing that replayed.
Yep.
A million times, but then again, it works out. It looks brilliant. So
exactly. But I don't know. It's this final quarter of this regular season here for Green Bay is going to be really interesting.
It is.
2 on the road, 2 at home. But you're right. Seattle's playing really well right now as of late. It's not an easy place to go over there and play. Minnesota, New Orleans even too playing. They got by thanks to a blocked field goal yesterday, but still it's.
I put this scenario out there. If the Packers split these next 4 games, are they still playoff bound?
Yes. Because that'll be 11-6.
So 11 wins probably gets you in.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the bare minimum you need.
Yeah, you got to at least split. But, I mean, obviously you want to.
I'd rather have the 5 or 6 in the 7 seed.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to play Philadelphia in the first round. I'd rather play like.
At Philly.
Yeah.
Yeah, with those.
Yeah, I'd rather play the NFC West or the NFC South division champ as a 5 or 6. So.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like, I'd feel comfortable.
There's something
to
play for, definitely, in this final stretch here.
No doubt about it, bud. All right. Hey, we appreciate it, buddy.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for stopping in. 2 hours in. We got 1 more to go. Stick around. We'll be back. Don't forget to send us your I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. We got a few texts to catch up on. First, some news updates. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Final hour on this Monday morning, December 9th. A big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from this morning. Coming up here in just a second, I'll get to some of your texts. Don't forget to send us your I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Fill in those blanks. We got a couple of those to get to as well. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. Badger football fans, thumbs up, thumbs down on the new offensive coordinator. Coach Grimes coming over from Kansas, going to be the new offensive coordinator from all the reports out there. Kansas, the top 15 team in the nation, around top 15 in terms of rushing. So seems like, at least on the surface, the Badgers may be getting back to their what was their bread and butter of running the football. Grimes, a former offensive lineman, too, coming over. So thumbs up, thumbs down. Be curious to get RJ's thoughts tomorrow when we talk to RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst, about about almost 24 hours from now. So we'll get to that, but I want your thoughts. All right, what do you think about that? Obviously, the biggest news in the world of sports right now has been Juan Soto, MLB free agency, kind of really kicking off now with winter meetings and such. Willie Adames signing a 7-year deal to join the San Francisco Giants. That was this past Saturday. It was reported over there, so probably no big surprise for all Brewers fans that Willie Adames is on the move there. But his contract almost looks like chunk change compared to what Juan Soto's getting. Reported 15-year, $765 million. I'm not saying it's going to be anytime soon, but I'm just saying we are going to get a billion-dollar player at some point. I don't know when, and I don't know if it'll be soonish. And when I say soonish, like 5 years or so, but we are going to get a billion-dollar player. We've already last year we crossed the 700 million. We've crossed 765 million. We will be getting a billion-dollar player at some point in time. It's just it's going to happen. It's going to happen in baseball, maybe soccer-wise too. Those would be, in my opinion, the top two candidates to get that. But we will get a billion-dollar player. Think about that. Some guy, some player, some person at some point is going to get a contract worth $1 billion. Unreal. We've got some more. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Let's go to the Facebook Live video stream over there. We had, let me bring it up here. Schuler not saying this defense is as bad as years past. However, we are still talking about it as the team's Achilles heel. Either it's not good enough pass rush or guys not right for the scheme again. Not saying it's a horror D because it's not. Another one here. We've got C-Bomb saying, I'm not saying I'm done with Major League Baseball, but I'm just saying with these contracts, no salary cap, and the baseball landscape as it is, I'm starting to hate Major League Baseball. Josh saying, not saying, but saying at some point all the small market baseball teams are going to sit out of the season till they fix this issue. And that was kind of a question I threw out there in the first hour to kind of go back to what C-Bomb had said. If you're a baseball fan and you're a fan of a small market team like the Brewers, how much does a contract like this, even though it doesn't affect your team, but it kind of doesn't to a point a little bit, but you know, when you see these other teams with empty pockets, does it take a hit on your fanism for your team, for the sport? Does it take, like, when you see this, like, oh crap, okay, why am I going to watch it now when you got, you know, these teams loading up on players like the Dodgers and the Mets and all that, and they're in the National League? Does it take a hit, or are you the mindset, no, you know, I know what to expect from my team. I know what they're about. I know how they build, and it'll just be sweeter when they take down those bigger teams. Maybe you're looking at it from the optimistic point of view. Where are you at on it? Does it take a hit? Does it lose your luster a little bit? Maybe not necessarily for the game of baseball itself, but for Major League Baseball. And the thing is, I don't know what you do to fix it. We kind of know what to do to fix it, but realistically, what do we do to fix it? Because it ain't going to be a salary cap. It's not. That won't happen anymore. It's too far gone. It can't happen. It won't happen. Is a step in the right direction having a salary floor where teams bare minimum have to spend so much at a certain year? But does that even make a difference competing with bigger league clubs, bigger market clubs and such? For me, I'll admit it. When we get to these big free agents, when it gets to big free agency in baseball, and we got big names like last year it was Otani, and this year it was Soto. It's like, okay, yeah, we already know the list of teams. You already know it's going to be Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, throw in the Red Sox once in a while. You know the handful of teams that are going to be able to afford these guys. There's not a whole lot of intrigue involved in it. Last year it was like, hey, Blue Jays trying to get him. And then this year you had, hey, Blue Jays trying to get Juan Soto. And it's like, okay. But then, no, you kind of wonder, the Blue Jays, the team the last couple of years have been used as a negotiation team to get the prices drawn up there a little bit more. So Mike saying, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, I've been saying this for the last 10 years, that baseball is going to die because small market teams can't compete and large market teams will have nobody to play against. There'll be 4 teams in Major League Baseball. Let's catch up on a couple more texts here. Surveyor Sam had sent in a little bit earlier. Dan Campbell is the reason why the Lions are so good, but it's Dan Campbell's arrogance that will be the reason they will never win a Super Bowl. 4 for 5 on 4th down. That's straight up idiotic. Big Worm a little bit earlier. Morning, buddy. I think the Packers played about as good as they could have on Thursday. My 2 complaints are Jeff Hafley's third down defense and Christian Watson's continued mistakes. If it's not fumbling, it's not catching the ball. And if it's not catching the ball, he can't stay healthy. I cannot wait till his contract is up. Wow. Have a great day. Love the program. So, Big Worm, you don't want Watson to stick around anytime. At least he stayed healthy this year. I mean, he's played in every single game. So maybe they've got that part figured out a little bit more. But, all right. They got decisions to make in a couple years when it comes to their wide receiving group. There's no question about it. Romeo, Christian up there first. You got Jaden Reed, who was pretty darn quiet Thursday. Dontavian Wicks in his second year right now. So, but maybe that's going to be the plan. Cycling in new wide receivers every few years and such. But a couple more texts here. This is from Ben going to the Badger offensive coordinator. Don't know a whole lot about the new offensive coordinator. He's not a flashy name, but from everything I've heard and his focus on the running game, I think it was a smart move by Fickle to bring him in and get the Badgers back to running the football. Another texter, don't have a name, can't give you any credit, saying, don't know who the new offensive coordinator is. Wasn't following Kansas or Baylor when he was offensive coordinator. But if he's focused on running the football, he's A-okay for me. With that too, I know we kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier too. It's probably going to be that the Badgers are going to hire a quarterbacks coach as well. In college football, a lot of times the offensive coordinator is the quarterbacks coach, but since Grimes is an offensive lineman, by trade, probably going to bring in a separate coach to be the quarterbacks coach for this team. And then, honestly, I'm fine with it. I'm A-okay with it. Perfectly fine with that. Get a guy that can just solely focus on working with the quarterbacks here. I've got another, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying that the college football playoff committee always gets it right. But I'm just saying I don't have really a whole lot to complain about with the college football playoff bracket. It was revealed over the weekend. Number 1, Oregon. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Boise State. Number 4, Arizona State. All 4 teams get buys. Clemson gets in as the final team. They're a 12 seed going up against number 5, Texas. You've got, and that winner will play Arizona State. Tennessee versus Ohio State in a 9-8 matchup. I think Oregon, I don't know, but if I'm Oregon, you're maybe hoping for Tennessee a little bit there. Who knows? But could have another Oregon-Ohio State matchup. SMU versus Penn State. Penn State's a 6. SMU is an 11. They will play, the winner of that will play the Boise State. And then Indiana, Notre Dame. Indiana's a 10. Notre Dame's a 7. The winner of that will play Georgia. I know, on first glance, you're looking at it, and a lot of people were saying this the other day too, that it looks like Penn State's got like one of the easiest paths because they play SMU and then they would play Boise State. Like a lot of that is because you look at, where the teams come from and strength of conferences and that sort of thing. And it could be. I'll tell you right now, my Final Four, if I'm picking it, is I'm going to go Texas, or not, excuse me, not Texas, Oregon. Yeah, no, Texas, Oregon. Bracket that I'm looking at is kind of confusing. I think Texas is 5 seed, is going to beat Clemson. Then I think they beat Arizona State. So 5 seed advances to play Oregon. And then I'm going to go Penn State versus Georgia. Penn State is a 6, Georgia is a 2. So the 1, 2, 5, and 6 teams advance. But I know the biggest thing out there now, last week it was like the whole Alabama thing. Should Alabama be in there with 3 losses? Now they're not in there, and now you got people from Alabama who are complaining about it. Nick Saban was the first one to complain about it, talking about, strength of schedule. If strength of schedule doesn't matter, why should these teams schedule these games? And he noted, Alabama's schedule going up against non-conference such. Now Alabama's athletic director said that he would need to assess his non-conference scheduling philosophy moving forward after the Alabama was left out of the 12-team college football playoff. Posted that he was disappointed with the outcome and acknowledged that losses to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma as 2 games in particular that we did not perform as well as we should have. But he also said, we have said that we would need to see how the strength of schedule would be evaluated by the college football playoff. With this outcome, we will need to assess how many P4 non-conference games make sense in the future to put us in the best position to participate in the college football playoff. That is not good for college football. So for the longest time, we talked about strength of schedules when it came to, like maybe Wisconsin. Strength of schedule. That's the way Wisconsin's going to get in and maybe compete for big-time bowl games, national championships. Strength of schedule. Now it's kind of flipped around, at least for one team, where they're saying strength of schedule doesn't matter because we play a tough non-conference schedule. They have 3 losses, but since their strength of schedule is up there, they don't get in. Because of the 3 losses. They had a really good non-conference schedule. Strength of schedule is up there, but because they had 3 losses, they don't get in. Which way do you go? Do you agree with Alabama that they should get in because of their strength of schedule? Or do you think they should be out because, well, you had 3 losses and you look at the other teams above you, they were more deserving? Did the College Playoff Committee get it right with their 12? Yes or no? That's simple. Did they get it right or did they not? I already know what Seabon's probably already saying. He's probably saying yes because last week Delphine Seabon did not want Alabama in there, but for a 3-loss team. SMU edged out Alabama for the final at-large spot. And Alabama is now set to play Michigan in the ReliaQuest Bowl on December 31st. So, Lane Kiffin. So Ward Manuel said, quote, too, I want to make sure everybody understands that we value strength of schedule. And Lane Kiffin had retweeted that saying, is this fake news? He didn't actually really say that. And then he tagged Alabama football in there and SMU football in there too. So what do you think? What do you think? Should Alabama gotten in there because of strength of schedule? Or should it have gone to SMU? Let me know. Hit me up with a text, 715-830-1912. Yeah, quick comparison, by the way, with Alabama and SMU. Alabama had an edge over SMU in a few categories, ranking higher in SMU's strength of record. ESPN's Football Power Index and top 25 wins. Who's got the better case? Who had the better resume? SMU or Alabama? Let me know. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll get back to some more of your texts in this final hour. Hit me up. Join in on the convo, all right? We'll be back in just a couple minutes. When was the last time you looked up into that left-hand corner of your windshield at the oil change sticker up there? Now you just realize it's probably been a bit. So where to go? Check out ASAP Used Auto Parts in Eau Claire. Not only are they your go-to place for high-quality used auto parts, they're your place to get some oil change, maybe get some new tires as well. Don't wait any longer. Stop on in or at ASAP Used Auto Parts or give them a call at 715-514-4501. I can't say that one word on there. So C-Bomb says Alabama, get better. Surveyor says, so a man who is all about the team, who doesn't complain about not getting enough touches and doesn't make problems in the locker room, but sure, get rid of a guy who will break his highest total in receiving yards, is averaging close to 22 yards a catch. Oh, okay, are you talking about Christian Watson here, Surveyor? You just kind of randomly so I'll start over, Surveyor. I think now I know who you're talking about. You're talking about Christian Watson, right? So a man who's all about the team, who doesn't complain about not getting enough touches and doesn't make problems in a locker room, but sure, get rid of a guy who will break his highest total in receiving yards, is averaging close to 22 yards a catch, and is our fastest wide receiver by a long shot. He doesn't have the stats to demand a high dollar, so we can bring him back on a very friendly team deal. Okay, so maybe we got a question here that I'll put it out to you, the listeners. Let's say, because they were drafted in the same class, let's do a quick informal poll, a very quick informal poll, because we only got about a half hour left. You got to pick one to sign. Let me rephrase that. You got to pick one to re-sign. I want everybody to text me who's listening, all right? I want everybody, because I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Watson or Dobbs? Who are you re-signing? You have to pick one. You can't say neither, or you can't say both. Those are not options. You got to pick one. You going Dobbs or Watson? No way around it. You got to pick one. Cannot pick both, or you cannot pick neither. Got to pick one. Who you picking? And let's assume, don't factor in money on this thing, okay? Like, oh, well, I think so-and-so is going to be cheaper, so I'll go this way. Who are you picking? Okay, don't worry about the money aspect of it. Don't worry about who you think is going to cost more or who it's going to be cheaper. If you got to pick one, who is it? Who is it? Dobbs or Watson? Got to pick one to re-sign when we get to that point. Who is it going to be? So I'll give you a few minutes to text me. You got to text me your picks. Okay, I want to know. I want to know. Okay. All right. So I'll wait for you to send some of those on over here and catch up on that. Again, text me 715-830-1912. Or if you want to do it on the video stream, that is perfectly fine here as well. Just kind of an informal poll over here. Don't be shy. Text it on over. I'm just gonna kind of do some basic math to see where we're at here. So, all right. Bottom of the hour here. Let's catch up on a couple of texts here too about the baseball world and Soto getting that $765 million deal. Question was kind of thrown out there. When you see teams or players, if you're a fan of the Brewers, smaller market team, and you see these bigger market teams, these teams with empty pockets out there, who, does it kind of, I guess, demoralize, or does it kind of ruin the sport for you in terms of your fandom and such? And a few of you saying yes, it does. Jeff a little bit earlier says, this is my problem with Major League Baseball. I love watching baseball and I love watching the Brewers, but it kind of takes a little bit of the excitement out of the sales for me, because I know these other teams have spent a boatload and have way more talent than my favorite team. Yes, the Brewers are a team that can compete in the regular season and get to the postseason, but I fully believe once you get to the postseason, those are when the big market teams shine. Mark, a little bit earlier, says, I enjoy watching baseball, I enjoy following the Brewers, but my expectations are so low on this ball club just because I don't think they could compete for a World Series because I think World Series are bought. Another texture here, Eric says it does take a little bit of excitement away from me. Initially, once the season rolls around, I'm pretty excited, but no doubt about it, it does put a damper on my feelings for the upcoming season and for the next few seasons because I know my team will never be able to sign a big time free agent. So, a few of you saying, yes, it does kind of damper you. It does kind of damper you. So, by the way, based off all the text right now, it is 50-50 with Watson and Dobbs. Right now, it's 50-50. Watson or Romeo Dobbs. All right. Keep it coming. I like it. Another text here that just came in with baseball with regards to Soto signing that major deal. It does annoy me that the rich keep getting richer in Major League Baseball. This is my biggest problem. I have it. I love the game of baseball, but I hate Major League Baseball. If it's not the commissioner trying to come up with stupid gimmick stuff like the golden bat rule, now we've got teams that can just buy teams to put together to win a championship. And honestly, that's kind of been something that a lot of you have said too. I'll admit, as a fan, it's like, at one point I'm like, I knew, Brewers are never going to get a guy like Soto. They're never going to get a guy like Ohtani. Never going to get them in terms of when they hit the free agent market and they're at their peak. They may draft a guy and they may have somebody in the system and they play. Maybe that guy's like a Jackson Cheerio, but they're never going to be able to go out there and sign one of those dudes. It's not going to happen unless something completely changes in my lifetime. But I'm resigned to that. I know that, so I'm not upset that it's not like I'm upset they didn't get Soto. I knew they weren't going to. I think what is upsetting a lot of baseball fans is the fact that, again, it's one of those teams that we knew that will spend a boatload of cash to try to build teams. And not only did it not work for the Mets a couple of years ago, but here's the thing, though, too. It may not have worked for the Mets a couple of years ago where they brought in Scherzer and Verlander. They were throwing all this money around, and it didn't work. But you know what? Because of their deep pockets, they're right back in it just a couple years later. Right? They're right back in it. They can afford to do it. They can afford to take those losses financially. They can afford to take that hit. And they're right back into it, throwing cash out. When you got a smaller market team, when they go all in or they throw in a bunch of money to one player, it can handcuff them and restrict them for a long time. And if they really go all in, they may take a few years to recover from it. When you've got bigger cash flow teams with owners that are willing to spend a whole lot more money, they can recover a whole lot quicker. That's just the facts right now in Major League Baseball, and I don't know what you can do to change it. Something realistically. Realistically, salary caps are not realistic in baseball. I mean, I know we keep hammering that home, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I'm just kind of operating on it. It sucks as a fan, to see your team not able to put, some free agents out there that could really improve your team, and you're really counting on your youngsters who are coming by on the cheap to really maybe outperform those contracts and really play at a high level. It stinks. It sucks not to be able to get some of those guys. But at the same point, you're like, okay, maybe we can be one of those teams that, you know what? We're going to take down the quote unquote Goliaths in terms of payrolls. And, those victories will just make it a little bit sweeter. Just make it a little bit sweeter if we can beat those teams. So, okay. It's still 50-50. Hit me up with a text. Don't be shy, even if you're first time. We had a few first timers texting. I appreciate that. Thank you for texting in. Watson or Dobbs. Again, if you can only do one, you can't do both. And you can't say neither. And don't worry about the money. If you could only pick one, Watson or Dobbs, let's make the case for both of these guys. Dobbs, you look at him and, maybe like a possession receiver, very aggressive at the point of the catch, kind of a nice maybe safety target for Jordan Love. And when I say safety target, it almost sounds negative, like, oh, just safety target. Dude's made some good catches and some big plays too. Maybe we're a little bit more reliable, right? The negatives, well, we saw what happened a little bit earlier this year. Maybe throwing a little bit of a tantrum about not getting the ball enough, and not showing up to practice for a week, got suspended and such. That's obviously on his record. Watson, big play, big receiver, fast receiver, has had some issues with some dropsies and health, but this year he's actually been very healthy. Very good blocker. All these receivers are actually pretty darn good blockers in Green Bay. But Watson's a guy that maybe can take the top off of an opposing defense. Defense has to recognize his speed and his size. So, which one you doing? Dobbs or Watson? Dobbs or Watson? I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes before I make my pick, but it is literally 50-50 right now. 50%. That close. And I don't know. The if we factored all of them in there, Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks and those guys, I think Jaden Reed's a duh. Dontavian Wicks, he's like a Devontae in that second year. I know a ton of you have used that comparison, and I think a lot of you have nailed that on the head. I don't know if he's going to be a next Devontae in terms of talent-wise and such, but, Devontae, second year, 2015, we all remember he wasn't Devontae that we know. So, yeah, kind of inconsistency heading into a second year, like, oh yeah, highs looking, stocks rising and that sort of stuff, and really hasn't been that way for Dontavian, but made some nice plays on Thursday. So give you a couple more minutes there. Catching up on a couple other texts here. We've got from college football playoff. Brian says they absolutely hit it on the head. I don't care about Alabama's case about strength of schedule. You schedule those games, you better win those games if you want to get into the postseason. Too bad for them. Try again next year. Another texter here says, I think Alabama should have got in. I think the committee should have done a better job in terms of strength of schedule. Let's be real. Everybody's saying Penn State has an easy path to the Final Four. Penn State plays Alabama. Nobody is making that argument. Okay. Another texter here saying they got it right. I would have been cool to see Army potentially get in, but I know that probably wouldn't have happened unless they maybe would have remained undefeated. Another texter also saying, maybe kind of 50-50 here, but texter saying, I think Alabama should have got in based off of strength of schedule. I understand their losses were bad losses, but I think they are a better team versus SMU if those two were to play against each other. Okay, final thoughts. You can send those on over. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll wrap things up with some picks and predicts, and then go over the results of our very quick impromptu text question. Dobbs or Watson? You got to pick one. You got to pick one. Who you picking? Okay? Last call. Final break here. Final text. Picks and predicts. All that good stuff. We'll be back to wrap things up here after these few words. All right, let's wrap things up. Hey, I want to give a big thanks again to all of you this year, 2024, who has supported Backyard Dreams, whether it was the golf event, whether you just donated something, whether it was participating in our putting challenge, Carpet City Florence there at Hy-Vee in the spring, whatever the case may be. A big thanks for your support in 2024. We were able to end the year taking some kiddos Christmas shopping yesterday at Mills Fleet Farm. Big thanks to Mills Fleet Farm for letting us kind of raid the Toyland aisles over there. But we were able to take some kiddos Christmas shopping yesterday who may not have, maybe weren't going to have the grace of Christmas, or just maybe just a tough year or such. But we were able to help make their Christmas a little bit brighter, and we couldn't do that if it wasn't for all of you that supported Backyard Dreams. Seriously, it's not, we can't do that. We can't help kiddos play on teams, play little league, or have experiences and such, or even have a good Christmas. We can't do that without all of you, because every single donation to Backyard Dreams goes right back to our local community, our local peeps here, helping everybody out. So I can't thank all of you enough. It's all because of you, that we were able to take some kiddos Christmas shopping. So a big thanks for all of you who have supported Backyard Dreams this year, and let's make 2025 even better, right? Let's go for it. All right, we've got a couple of texts here. We've got Keith here saying, "I love seeing big spending teams fall on their faces. Meanwhile, our young Brewers gave us plenty of thrills and only fell short with one uncharacteristic failure by a usually reliable closer." All right. The results are in. Cutting off the voting right now because we got quite a few. I was counting some of them on our texting line by the slimmest of hairs. The smallest of hairs. Christian Watson got the most votes over Romeo Dobbs. By the slimmest of margins, though. We're talking by just a couple of votes. Just a couple of texts here. I won't go through all of them. Dan from River Falls says, "It's elementary, dear Watson." Shout out River Falls over there, too. "He is a better teammate, and Watson is a deep threat that other teams need to plan for." We've got John said, "I think Dobbs is more of a possession receiver, but you definitely get the big plays out of Watson. I would say keep Dobbs. Watson seems to have a little injury prone over there." So my pick, if I had to pick one between these two, my pick, by the slightest of margins. I love both of them. And I think they both bring something uniquely different to the table, uniquely different to the team. But if I had to pick one to answer my own question, I would go with Christian Watson as well. I don't think you could find too many 6'4", tall, big wide receivers with his speed. Yes, he has a case of the dropsies once in a while, but a guy that takes the top off, makes defenses honest a little bit. That explosiveness over there. There's not many guys that are built like him. I get the injury stuff, although this year you got to give him credit. He's been out there. He's been out there. Hopefully they've figured that out with his hamstring injury. Hopefully that's kind of, they've turned the corner over there. But if I had to pick between the two, I'm going to go with Watson because he is completely different than what, Jaden Reed and those guys are. I think Dontavian Wicks could maybe be a little bit like a Romeo Dobbs type of receiver there, but I'm going to go Watson because he is physically way different than everybody else on that depth. So that's who I'm going with. I love them both, and I hope we can keep both. Let's do some picks and predicts here this morning. All right, picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place in Eau Claire. Again, if you're looking for somewhere to catch some of these games or just to hang out and have a cold beverage, go visit Garrett and our good friends at the Elbow Room. Quick, let me bring up, I forgot to look at the standings here for our pro football weekly pick'em challenge here. Let's see if Jolene had a good weekend, still up in first place here before we get to our picks. All right. Click. Where are we at here? Leaderboard, load up. All right, so Jolene up. Okay, 150. First one up to 150. Garrett's in second at 147. Myself and Tim tied for third place right now. I thought I had a decent week, didn't I? Think everybody might have had a decent week, though, to be honest with you. So, yeah, 9 out of 12. Which ones did I get wrong? I got the Jaguars one. Oh, I went with Arizona over Seattle and then the Buffalo one. Okay. So, one more game tonight as we wrap up week 14 and officially enter the final quarter of the regular season here. We've got the Bengals visiting the Dallas Cowboys. I am going to go with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Bengals picking up the win tonight in Dallas. Bengals, I think, are so the Jets are the best team in terms of okay, they got a lot of talent, but they stink. Maybe the Bengals are like that too. They've got talent. Joe Burrow's been lining up passing wise and such, but they're just not winning games. They're 4-8 so far this year. So actually surprised to see Dallas is 5-7. For some reason, I was thinking they were 4-8 too. But I think I'm gonna go with the Bengals tonight to get the victory. So, and that'll wrap up week 14. Hard to believe. Let's do some more games coming up here because what do we got here? We've got one NBA game in action tonight, and that is the Knicks taking on the Raptors. Yeah, give me the Knicks for this one. I'll ride with the Knicks to pick up that game. Let's do. Shall we do some college hoops coming up here? Let's go. Not a whole lot, but we got the Gophers visiting Indiana. Give me the Gophers. A little Big Ten action there. I'll go with them. Other than that, I mean, anybody want to go Hofstra versus Norfolk State? Norfolk, I guess. Some of these, not to mess with them, but when you look at it, you're looking at schedule like on the mothership on ESPN. They don't even have the logos for some of these teams. But some of these other games are like 22.5-point favorites over there. So how about we haven't done one of these in a little bit here. Let's do some NHL games. Detroit at Buffalo tonight. Give me the Sabres. I'll go with Buffalo. Let's do the Blackhawks taking on the Rangers. I'm going to go with the Rangers in this one. The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim taking on Montreal. I'm going to go with the Canadiens. I'm going with all the home teams tonight. So Buffalo, the Sabres, the Rangers of New York, and the Canadiens of Montreal. So those are your picks and predicts. Again, brought to you by the Elbow Room, our good friends, the Elbow Room. All right. We got a couple more texts I wanted to catch up on that I didn't get to. I forgot to get to a little bit earlier. Just going to do some house cleaning here. This was a little bit earlier from Greg about baseball. I'm sick and tired of baseball free agency and seeing the big spenders out there always win in free agency and always get the big name players. I would love to see a little bit more parity. I get it. It's a cool story to see some of these smaller market teams, take down these take down some of these bigger market teams, but it sure seems like once the postseason starts, it's always the high spender teams, a la this past World Series, Yankees, Dodgers. We've got Aaron talking about sad to see Willie Adames go, but we all knew he was going to move on. That contract sure looks small compared to Juan Soto's, though, although it's still too pricey for the Brewers. Who do you think is their shortstop? I think it's Ortiz. I think it's Joey Ortiz. I think Bryce Terang stays at second. I think Ortiz is going to move to short. I did see one rumor for the Brewers. I don't know how up and up on it was, but there was one rumor that Brewers were focusing on trying to find a third baseman at these winter meetings. So did see that was so. I mean, if that probably tells you the case right now that Ortiz is going to move to short, Terang's going to stay at second, and then I would imagine if they're focusing on trying to find a third baseman, maybe a guy that's got a little bit more pop, a little bit more power to his bat. I mean, let's face it too, Willie Adames coming off that season, you're losing some power. You're losing some power with his bat, so it only seems natural that you would try to find a third baseman that can try to replace some of that power in his bat. So And then a couple more from our college football playoff one. Texter said, I have no complaints about the college football playoff bracket. We all wanted different and new teams in the playoffs. We got that with SMU, Arizona State, and Boise State. Now we'll see if they can actually play against the big boys. Another texter here saying, no problem with no Alabama in there. They can whine and complain all they want, and college football will probably change or alter some of the stuff just to make Alabama happy. But I am fine with how the bracket shaped up for this year. Oh, all right. A lot of you texting in this morning. I appreciate that. Good stuff as always. Love hearing your thoughts here. So, Steve, by the way, okay, yep, Steve, I did count your Dobbs one. I thought I missed it, but no, I didn't on Facebook there. Schuler also said the only one I was wondering about is Army at 11-1 not getting in. I would have loved to have seen Army get in. That would have been so cool. A couple of texters, by the way, that I forgot to catch up on about the Badgers offensive coordinator. Kevin says that he likes the signing of Grimes as the new offensive coordinator for the Badgers. I'll admit, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I love the fact that he seems to be committed to the run. Another name out there. Hope this offensive coordinator, or I should say another texter out there. Hope this offensive coordinator works out. This is a make it or lose it pick for Luke Fickell. He better hope that this one works out. Sure seems like this is maybe a little bit more of a safer hire for Luke Fickell. Getting back to a run-first mentality to make Badger people more happy. Well, we'll talk some more Badgers tomorrow with RJ Cardinal. We'll get his thoughts. We'll get the feeling what it's like down in Madison with this hiring. I know it's not officially official yet, but we'll talk to RJ about that. Also, volleyball, Sweet 16 back over there, so we'll hit that up. Men's hockey had a big win over Michigan State too, so plenty of Badger stuff to talk about. And the hoops team, they've dropped their last two games. Probably want to get rid of last week for Badger basketball after losing to Michigan and then losing to Marquette on Saturday. So we'll talk all things Badgers with RJ and get the feel of what it's like in Madison surrounding everything. A lot of stuff going down over there. Reminder, tomorrow is a Grind My Gears Tuesday. It's an ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesday. So think about it a little bit. Be ready to submit what's grinding your gears. Okay? I want to know. Let's get it off your chest. Okay? Probably makes you feel a little bit better. This is so... Not to go off on a complete tangent, it was only a minute to go, but I just saw Schefter tweet this. Talks between North Carolina and Bill Belichick for the school's open head coaching job are ongoing. Can you picture Belichick coaching North Carolina college football? I don't know. I saw one thing there, too, that he wanted it guaranteed that his son would be coach in waiting. So what, he coaches a year and then his son gets to be the head coach? I don't know. That'd just be weird. North Carolina? Come on. So he can go like 7-5 and go play in some random bowl game? I don't know. That one would be a surprise for me. A huge, huge surprise for me. All right, shot clock's going to cut me off. Again, tip of the cap to all of you. Big thanks to all of you for texting, commenting on the video stream, and all that good stuff. Keep her coming. Keep it coming. I appreciate it. Love getting your comments and feedback. So let's keep this going. Keep the momentum going, right? DP and Adanitz are up next. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your Monday. Back at it again tomorrow morning, shortly after